Alright, so today we're going to go inside the cell and we're going to look at all the different pieces that make up the cell and what they do and how they help and how they interact with each other. Alright. First things first, all these different pieces we call organelles. So if you remember, look back on your unit handout, we had the word parts on there. Remember, you got to know those for your quiz. The ending here, E-L-L-E-S, means tiny. Alright, so we have tiny or small, and then we all should know what these are. Alright, and inside our bodies, we got a heart, liver, lungs, kidney, stomach. All those are organs. Well, what these organelles are tiny organs. Alright, so inside the cell, you think of the cell, compare it to the human body, you have a bunch of different little organs in there doing different things. Just like you have your brain. Your brain doesn't pump blood. No, it does your thinking and processing. Heart doesn't digest food. It pumps blood. So everything has its own unique, specific function that happens, same as these organelles inside the cell. All right. So let's look at our first one here. Our first one is the cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is all that jelly-like substance that's inside the cell. So inside this cell right here, it's all the peachish, light brown, kind of tan looking stuff inside here. Has several different purposes. Alright. First one is, the main one is, this is where all our chemical reactions happen inside the cell. So if the cell is breaking something down or changing something or doing something, that's where it happens. Okay. That cytoplasm also gives the cell its shape. So this round cell here, so it looks kind of like an animal cell, but if it didn't have all this jelly stuff inside of here, it would just be squished down on itself. So it gives it a shape, gives it a structure. So that's our cytoplasm. The next one, the nucleus. We all know what the nucleus is for. Keeps that DNA in there, all right? That genetic material. Could be DNA, could be RNA, but the genetic material is inside the nucleus. This is pretty important stuff. It's the blueprint for the whole organism, blueprint for the cell. So it's got its own little container to keep it from getting messed up, all right? You have $1 million, you don't just leave it laying on the front porch. You lock it up in a safe. Well, to the cell, to the organism, that DNA is like $1 million. It tells you what you are. All right? If it gets messed up, the organism's messed up. So we got this nice little home for it here in the nucleus to keep it from getting messed up. All right? We have two parts. We have chromatin, which are the strands of DNA. Okay, so we got all these little squiggly lines of DNA inside that nucleus. Inside of the nucleus. That's chromatin. All right. This chromatin will coil up at certain times when need be, and we'll get to that when we get over into genetics. It will coil up and make these little X-looking things, and we call those chromosomes. All right. So we have chromatin, and then we have chromosome. That's the same material, just different shape, different structure. All right, inside of this nucleus, we have a center, a nice little ball inside of here. It's called the nucleolus. Okay, and this is where ribosomes are made. Ribosomes, we're going to get to those here in a second. They are key. They are vital to the survival of the organism, and they're made here in the nucleus. They're made in the nucleus and then sent out to where they need to go. All right, so we got the chromatin, DNA, or RNA. And then we have our nucleolus inside there. So here's what it would kind of look like on from a microscopic view. Here's our nucleus. This whole thing here is the nucleus. Here's our nucleolus. Here's where ribosomes are going to be made. Ribosomes are made here, and then they're shipped out to these pores and go out into the cell. Here's our chromosomes. Looks like a little X. That's our chromosomes. And then all of this grayish looking area That's chromatin. Those are pieces of DNA. It's so much that it looks like it's just a shaded area, but it's so many fine little fibers of DNA stuffed inside that nucleus. All right, the next one is the ribosome. All right, ribosome, site of protein synthesis. You're going to see this word synthesis a lot. Synthesis means to make. So if protein synthesis means we are going to make proteins. Ribosomes make proteins. Proteins are key for just about every chemical reaction that happens inside your body. Have to have a protein to start it, to get it going, to make it work. No ribosomes, no protein, nothing happens inside your body. Okay? Ribosomes are the only organelle that is found in both prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Remember back to yesterday, prokaryotes, no nucleus, no membrane-bound organelles. Eukaryotes do have those. All right? But ribosomes are not considered membrane-bound organelles. They're just organelles. So we see those in both the prokaryotic cell here, and then we also see them inside of the eukaryotic cell. It's all these little round dots, round circles. Okay. All right, our next thing is the endoplasmic reticulum, the ER. This is a little membrane that is folded up, almost like a tissue. You fold tissues up inside of a tissue box. If you ever took the box off and have that little stack of tissues there, and you pull them and they're kind of folded together, that's what the endoplasmic reticulum looks like. Okay, this is used to transport materials through the cell. That's all it's used for. So we have two types. We have smooth and we have rough. Smooth ER has no ribosomes. No ribosomes. Rough ER has ribosomes. So if you look here, you see this one, all we see is that folded membrane. There's no little round spheres attached to it, no little ribosomes attached to it. So that means this is smooth ER. If you look at this one, you see all these little black dots on here. You got black dot there, all these black dots here. Those are all ribosomes. So this is rough ER. Because when you stick something on the outside of it, it makes it rough. It's not smooth anymore and slick. It's got all these little bumps all over the outside of it. Well, those are the ribosomes. Okay. The endoplasmic reticulum goes it's right next to the nucleus. Why does it have to be next to the nucleus? Well, what's made inside the center of the nucleus? We have that nucleolus here that makes those ribosomes, sends them out through these pores, and those ribosomes go and attach to the ER. Makes it the rough ER. Okay, here's our smooth ER up here. Here's our rough one. So if that ribosome goes out through that pore and right into the endoplasmic reticulum, where it can sit there and make protein. Okay. ER takes that protein, pushes it out to where it needs to go in the cell. The next organelle, Golgi apparatus. This one kind of looks like the ER. Me, this looks like a little squishy alien. There's his eyes, here's his eyeballs, here's his antennas right up here, and his squishy little face. There's his mouth right there because he's upset. All right. So it's a stacked, flattened bunch of membrane, just squished together. Looks in appearance kind of like the ER. There's not much difference in the two, except for what they do. The ER sends out the proteins that are made by the ribosome. The Golgi apparatus grabs those and takes them and makes them into what they need to be. Okay, you think about it, the ER takes the first product that's made, and then it ships it out to the Golgi apparatus. The Golgi apparatus takes it, puts it into its package, boxes it up all nice and neat, and ships it out to the store. All right, so this could be anything. It could be, you go to the, you buy a box of crackers, Triscuit crackers. The ribosomes make them. Endoplasmic reticulum takes them, sends them out. to the Golgi apparatus. The Golgi apparatus takes those crackers, puts them in the little plastic sleeve, seals it up, sticks them in a box, closes the box up, all nice and tight, and now it's going to distribute it where it needs to go, send it to the store. Okay? So what we say is this Golgi apparatus puts the finishing touches onto those proteins that have been made. Hope you're following along with me. And we come to my favorite, the lysosomes. All right, so the prefix lyse, L-Y-S-E, if you have lice, that means to burst. Burst it open, break it apart. These lysosomes, all they do is eat. They go through the cell and they break down molecules that are in there to get rid of them. You know, it's kind of like the trash. This is the trash guy. He comes around picking up all the trash. This, to me, this guy right here has the best job of any, because he eats all day long, every day. That's all he does. He just eats. He gets to eat all day long, and that's his job. All right, that would be a cool job. Just eat, nothing else. Don't have to do anything else. All right. They also, you know, they'll pick up trash that doesn't need to be in the cell anymore, but they also will break down and destroy, get rid of worn out cell parts. Okay, if there's a mitochondria in that cell, it's not working anymore. It's taking up room that it doesn't need to. So the lysosome will come in and it will break that cell part down, eat it, get rid of it, making room for a new one. Okay, these guys also will break down viruses and bacteria. So if you have virus and bacteria that gets in your cells, if the cell recognizes it and knows, hey, it's not supposed to be in here, these lysosomes go and they engulf them, those virus and bacteria, and break them down so they can't infect the cell. Okay. These are mainly found in animal cells. Some plants, some protists, you know, that will have these, but all animal cells have them. Vacuole. Next one is our vacuole. This right here is one of the ways we can determine plant from animal. If you haven't, you probably have heard it before. But when we look to see if it's a plant cell, we look for a couple of different things. First, one of the things we look for is a vacuole. In a plant has a very large central vacuole. What do you think that's used for? What does a plant need more than anything? It needs water. All right, so it's got this large vacuole that when it gets water, that vacuole swells up, fills up with water, and saves it, stores it, because that plant doesn't know when it's going to get water again. It can't get up out of the ground, walk over to the pond, and get a drink. The day that happens, that is the day I leave. I go somewhere else because something's wrong here. Okay, but it doesn't. They're not just for storing water, but that is a main thing in plants. It can store salt, protein, carbohydrates, which we've talked about, those sugars, those simple sugars for quick energy. It can store all those things. I already said plants have one huge, large central vacuole. Animals have a bunch of them, but they're real small, because we can, we don't need to store a lot of stuff. If we need it, we can go get it. If we need water, we can go get a drink. If we need food, we can go eat and put food back in us. We don't have to store stuff up for later. Now, some animals do. You think about bears. Bears hibernate for a long period of time. They got larger vacuoles because they have to store things away for that long period of sleep. A little bit different than our cells. All right, moving on. Mitochondria. I guarantee you this is the one most all of you will know. You'll all remember it because it's the one you focus on, in middle school. It's the powerhouse of the cell. It's known right there, known as the powerhouse of the cell. It makes energy. Now, the energy it makes is called ATP. And we're going to get a little further into that this semester of what ATP is, because it is a big deal. And actually, in the next unit, we're going to talk more about ATP. ATP is the energy that runs our body. It's not just like you can go eat that Snickers and it's all good, you got energy. No, that has to be turned into something. Your body you can't use that. You know, for me, my body can't use sugar at all. I'm diabetic. I can't have sugar, so I have to have other ways to produce ATP and energy. Thank God we have that, okay? But it takes our food mitochondria, it takes that food and breaks it down so that we can get that energy, that ATP out of it. Okay? Yeah, what they look like, they almost look like a little, like a roly-poly. If you ever seen a roly-poly when they all, all squished out, they're not rolled up. It kind of looks like that if you see it under a microscope. All right, chloroplast. What type of cell has chloroplast? And you all should be saying plants. Plants have chloroplast. They use these chloroplasts to turn light into food. Okay? They turn light energy into sugar. Sugar. Plants have sugar. You eat that salad, you got sugar? Yes, you do. Plants have sugar in them. That's their main source of energy is glucose, sugar. Now, is it do you get the same amount as if you were to eat a candy bar? No, it's a lot less. But plants do that, and they do that through the process of photosynthesis, which we are going to talk about in the next unit. Found in cells of green plants and some protists. Now, plants are not the only guys that have these things. There are some protists that have them. There's some photosynthetic bacteria that we talked about yesterday that have these chloroplasts in there. I wish we had them. I would love to be able to, I feel that I'm so tired, I'm going to fall asleep, and I can just walk outside, stare in the sun, get re-energized. Doesn't work that way, unfortunately. Unfortunately. But plants do that. And the reason why plants do that is because they can't get up and move. They can't go get energy. They have to, right there, that's it. They have to get what they can from the sun. All right? So the pigment that's in there is called chlorophyll. It is a green pigment. That's what makes these things look green, that traps that sunlight. And it says radiant energy. That means radiation coming from the sun. These chloroplasts will absorb every color of the light spectrum except green. That's why this pigment is a green color. All right. So now we're moving to the outside of the cell. We have what's called a cytoskeleton. Cyto, kind of like cytoplasm, and this is a little skeleton around it. It's not like our skeleton where it's a firm, rigid thing. It's a bunch of thin filaments. So you see all these little thin, squiggly lines? That's the cytoskeleton. Is it as structurally stable as our skeleton? No, it's not. But it does give that cell some support. Okay. They form what we call centrioles. All right, these centrioles, you're going to hear this again when we get to genetics, cell division, making new cells. You're going to hear those words again because these centrioles are a key part in cell reproduction. Okay. All right, cell membrane. Cell membrane. One main function, controls what goes in and out of the cell. All right, we're going to get into this cell membrane later on in Unit 3 and get more in depth with it. But it controls what goes in and out. All right. Here's a key word that you have to know, and you will hear this from me over and over and over and over, and maybe even over again this year, is homeostasis. All right. Maintaining an internal balance. So homeostasis means balance. Everything has to be in the right levels for systems, bodies, organisms to work, to survive. Okay? Cell membrane does that. It maintains that for the cell. If there's too much salt inside the cell, it's got to get rid of some, or it's got to put some water in to dilute it. It's got to maintain that balance. That's one example. Sugar, same way. Anything. It's going to maintain that balance by pushing things in and out of the cell. All right? It's a flexible layer, and we call it a phospholipid bilayer. All right, we're going to break this word down. You're going to hear that a lot from me. I'm going to break words down because if you know how the word means, it becomes very easy. Phospho comes from phosphorus, the element phosphorus. Lipid, which we've already talked about, lipid is a fat. We have fats. Bi, the prefix bi means 2 layers. So we have 2 layers of phosphorus and fat. All right, you have an inner layer and an outer layer. Okay. Here's our fats right here. These are our lipids. Lipid tails here in the center. And we have our phosphorus heads on the inside and outside. Okay. We'll get more in depth with that and what that does when we talk about the cell membrane in the next unit. All right. And cell wall. We don't have this. All right. Our bodies, our cells don't have cell walls. Plants have cell walls, some algae, fungi, and most prokaryotic cells have a cell wall. It is a thick, rigid, sturdy outer layer that does not allow that cell to bend. It keeps it firm. All right. You think about a plant. Think about that tree trunk. If the cells were like ours and they're round and they can squish and move, when you start stacking them on top of each other, would that tree ever grow tall? It would get to a point to where it would be so heavy they would all squish and that tree would fall over. So we have to have this thick cell wall on the outside, almost like blocks, so we can stack on top of each other so that plant can grow. Okay? You see it here in this diagram, this nice thick wall around the outside of the plant. It's going to give the plant kind of a square, rectangular-ish shape, and that's the other way we tell plants from animals. Okay? Here's a microscopic view of plant cells stacked on top of each other. See that square-ish shape with that thick cell wall. And you can see they're stacked the other way, three-dimensional, going this way. You have a bunch of them stacked on top of each other. Okay? All right, the cell wall is composed of one of 2 things. All right, in plants, it's made of cellulose. A couple of sets of notes ago, I told you that anything that ends in OSE is a sugar. Once again, plants use glucose for their energy source. That's sugar. Their cell walls are made of cellulose. That's sugar. Do you get a little sugar when you eat plants? Yes, you do, but not as much as if you were to go eat a Snickers. Okay. In fungi, they have cell walls as well, but it's made of something called chitin. All right. This is a big deal when we get to that next semester of telling fungus cells from plant cells. They contain chitin in their cell wall, not cellulose. Okay. So, all of that said, plant versus animal now. Okay. Plant cells are generally bigger than animal cells. Think about a huge redwood tree, and then think about you. All right. Which one is larger? That redwood. Would you expect that the cells inside there would be larger too? Yeah, you would. And they're also larger because of that square-shaped cell wall that's in there. Plant cells have chloroplasts. Animals don't. Plant cells have one or a large vacuole. We have a bunch of little small ones. Plant cells have a cell wall. All right, I'm going to underline all these plant cell things. Plants are larger. They're rectangular. They have a large vacuole. They have a cell wall. Okay? And then animals have centrioles and lysosomes. So there's our compare and contrast plant and animal cell. Plants large, animals small. Plants square, animals round. Plants chloroplast, animals don't have them. Oops, didn't underline that one. There's that one. Chloroplast. Plants have a large vacuole, animals have smaller ones. Plants have a cell wall, animals don't. Animals have centrioles and lysosomes, plants don't. So similar cells because we've got a lot in common, but there are some differences there. When you're looking at them, you can tell it pretty quick and easy, and you're going to have an assignment today that you're going to have to look at that probably. So here are the 2. Does this look like a square? No, it doesn't. It's not got 4 sides, look like a square, but how you look at it is these are straight lines. They're more squared off. makes that pentagon shape. This one, not straight, it's round. Okay, don't have that square shape. Here's our large vacuole. We have some smaller vacuoles in the animal cell. Here's our chloroplasts. There's one, there's one, there's one. Do you see any of those in here? No, they're not there. Okay. These are a little bit larger. This picture doesn't do it justice to the size difference, but that is a big deal. Okay, so a bunch of different things here we can tell plant from animal. All right. All right. So those are the parts of the cell, parts of plant and animal cells. Some prokaryotes thrown in there because they only have a couple things in common with us. They got the ribosomes, they got cell membrane, some have a cell wall. All right, but they don't have all those other organelles. That's why we only have plant and animal in this picture. If you have questions, reminder, send me an email. Come in our conference, ask the questions. Whatever way necessary, I'll get back to you as quick as possible. That's all of our notes for Unit 2. And then we're going to move into, here in a couple of days, we're going to move into Unit 3 where we talk about photosynthesis using those chloroplasts and cellular respiration. So we will see you next time.